Friday the 13th characters that should have survived. Now, this is gonna be an interesting list because there's 12 movies in the franchise, which means there's tons of characters to choose from. I'm gonna go ahead and narrow my list down to 10. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna start with a couple of runner-ups here. So, the first runner-up is Annie from Part 1. Now, Annie is the classic, Janet Leigh, Drew Barrymore, could have been the main character, should have been the main character, but is not the main character because she dies in the first 20 minutes. Now, as with most horror movies, the first character you see, the character you first engage with, there's kind of a built-in assumption that that's going to be our main character. And that's kind of the story with Annie. We see her, we meet her, she's very nice, and we follow her for a little bit, but then she's killed in the woods about 20 minutes in because she hitchhikes down the wrong damn road and is picked up by Mrs. Voorhees. And it's a credit to her that you actually do feel something when she dies, which is a credit to the actress. It means that she was able to convey enough in her short amount of screen time that made us as audience feel for her when she died. But I understand the shock value here of her dying, and you had to make room for Alice to be the main character, so I get it. But it'd been nice to see more of Annie, and I think she could have been a survivor for sure. The other runner-up would be Rob from Part 4. He's killing me. That's right, that guy. Rob is our avenging angel character who is back to avenge Sandra from part two, which, is for the final chapter, it's the right character to have in this moment. And it's kind of built up in a way where we're expecting to have this epic encounter with Jason, this big fight scene. Him's gonna save the Jarvis family and do all this stuff here. And then when he does confront Jason, or at least Jason confronts him, he basically gets murked very quickly without much of a struggle, not much of a fight. Just, hey, he's killing me, Trish, run, Chris. And you know, it's kind of like I understand the idea that, well, when you lose him, now it's a little bit more scary for the audience because you're thinking, oh, there's Trish and a little brother. How are they going to be able to fight Jason on their own? So I get that element of it, but I don't know. I kind of just wish we could have saw more from Rob, more of a classic, fight, a struggle basically to avenge his sister. But it's a runner-up because the fact is, I mean, that scene where he dies is absolutely hilarious, and it's been providing comedic value for me for years. So I can't actually get rid of that scene. So all right, let's get to the actual list now. So number 10, we have Ali from Part 3. Now, Ali, we see as basically the head of a biker gang. He has some sinister intentions after he gets into a little beef with Shelly and Vera. He wants to potentially burn down the barn, but his biker gang is killed by Jason, and then soon he fights Jason himself. Not really a fight. Jason just actually beats the shit out of him, and then he's passed out for most of the movie. And then we see Ali one more time at the end when he wakes up from his coma, sees Jason attacking Chris. He basically kind of saves Chris's life by distracting Jason, but distracting him by getting hacked to pieces by Jason, I should mention. But Ali, you know, even though he's kind of an antagonist for the most of the movie, he does a noble thing there at the end. Now, was he trying to get revenge on Jason or was he trying to save Chris? We don't know. And maybe the smarter play was just to play dead, just scan things. You wake up, don't be such a rush to jump up and fly into Jason. Maybe just scan things from the ground, see what's going on, make a smarter play. But he did what he did and ended up hacked to pieces. But it would have been nice to see more of Ali. I definitely think he could have been a survivor. There's room for a survivor in part 3 to go with Chris, and there's actually a better survivor for part 3. We'll talk about that later. And there is actually a rumor that the original ending was Ali surviving and walking out the barn with Chris, but that the actress from part 3 who played Chris didn't actually like that ending, and so it was vetoed. That's just a rumor, though. That's just hearsay. Number 9 is Eva from part 8. Now, this is maybe not the best pick for the list. I would say that Eva is the one character who I didn't know her name. I didn't remember her name. So famously, she's played by Kelly who you may remember from The Scorpion King or Vampire Diaries. Really great actress. But I mean, if Ghostface called me today and said, you get this question right, you get this question wrong. What was the name of Kelly Hu's character from Jason Takes Manhattan? I'd be dead right now, completely dead, because for the life of me, I could not remember her name. Her name is Eva, and Eva has she has a hell of a character arc, like in the movie. Like she is hanging out with the evil Tamara, who is our one of our human antagonists, and she watches Tamara do drugs. She watches Tamara push Rennie off the boat, and she decides right there, hey, I don't want to hang out with this person anymore. I'm gonna go do my own thing. High school is over. I'm time to grow up and mature. I have a bright future ahead of me as long as I stay out of disco rooms. I have a bright future ahead of me. So she makes a change, a decent change, to be a better human being. And then Jason kills her 5 minutes later. Now, okay, I mean, no, it's not the best character, not the most developed character, but I appreciate that she had a bit of an arc. She did something decent and she got the wrong reward. Now, maybe she can still die, but let her make it in Manhattan. I mean, a lot of people feel like Julius is the one that should have survived that movie, but I mean, Julius is responsible for the main highlight of Jason Takes Manhattan, which is his death scene. So we don't want to lose that boxing match on the roof. So I just think Eva got the wrong reward for doing decent actions, and you could have done more with her character for sure. So, all right, number 8. Now, Rob from Part 4 was an honorable mention, but there is one character also from Part 4 that I think could have survived, and that is Sarah from Part 4. Um, there's a dynamic there, a juxtaposition. Probably didn't get that word right, but between the teens in one house and then the Jarvis family in the other house. And the movie's following both stories as they go along. And you kind of have a feeling that, hey, of course, the Jarvis family is going to be there at the end. Those are our main protagonists. But I do think there was room to have one teen survivor from the teen house meet up with the Jarvis family at the end, and then together they fight Jason. Um, that may have caused some conflict in terms of like, oh, who's the final girl? Is it Trish or is it Sarah? But there's a movie that did this exact dynamic very well, which is the Slumber Party Massacre, where you had the teens having the slumber party in one house, and the other house you had the older sister and the younger sister doing their own thing, and then they kind of converge at the end, and you have three of them versus the killer. Same dynamic could have been played here. Maybe Trish finds Sarah hiding in a closet. The key thing is Sarah maybe is hiding in the house so Jason never gets her, and then somehow they come together. And I think you can make that work. I think there's room for one teen survivor. And you think about who is the teen survivor? Who should that be? Should it be Crispin Glover? No. You don't want to lose his death scene. Where's the corkscrew, Ted? You don't want to lose that. That's great. Ted, no, he's a package deal with Jimbo. He's got to die too. Sarah is among the teens the most likable character. Now it's the 80s, so maybe the whole thing was because she had sex, she had to die, but that's very simplistic. I think that, find her hiding in the house and you make the ending, I think, a little bit more interesting to have that dynamic of them teaming up against Jason. Okay. Number 7. Now Jason Goes to Hell was there's a lot of problems with it plot wise. Jason being a demon hopping, whatever the hell he was. A lot of issues. Does the movie even connect to the first 8 movies? Who knows? But there's one character that not only stands out from the movie, but I think is a standout in the franchise, and that is Creighton Duke, played by the great Stephen Williams, who you also may remember as the lieutenant or detective or captain in the old 21 Jump Street TV show. Shouts out to that show, which I used to watch as a kid. Creighton Duke is a bounty hunter who has a past with Jason, who's hunting Jason, who knows everything about Jason, all the lore and how to kill Jason somehow. And then at the end, gets killed by Jason. Well, kind of volunteers himself to be killed because he handcuffs himself to Jason. Now, the main reason I wanted Crane Duke to live was because I would have followed a spin-off movie with this character. I would have watched his own TV show with this character. I would have loved to seen him in Freddy versus Jason. Man, you could have done so much with Crane Duke. Such a great performance by Stephen Williams. Such a mysterious character too. You kind of want to know more about him. And then Crane at the end being like, hey, let me handcuff myself to Jason. He's basically giving his life for this thing. And I'm just like, come on, Crane. There's other serial killers that need you to take them down. So don't be so hasty with giving your life here. Number 6. Now this pick usually is a little bit higher on most people's lists, but I'm going to say Alice from Part 2. Alice, who for me, I think she was likable, but I don't think I see her as a final girl in the same capacity that other people do. I don't think she's a Laurie Strode. I don't think she's a Nancy from Nightmare. I think she's pretty good, but I didn't have some strong emotional connection to her at all. So when she dies at the beginning of Part 2, after being stabbed in the head with an ice pick, I did not feel that strongly about it. I wasn't feeling like, "Oh my god, we lost a great character." But in hindsight, I do think that she could have played a role kinda like Nancy did with the Nightmare series, where Nancy came back in Nightmare 3 and helped a new group. You could have had Alice perfectly fit into, for example, Final Chapter. She could have played the Rob role in part 4, without the, "He's calling me." We cut that part out then. But, you could have done more with the character, but her exit in part 2 also establishes part 2 as like a, "Hey, anything can happen, anybody can die." So I'm torn on that, but people, I feel, were very emotionally connected to her character more so than I was. So I wanna have respect for and put her on the list, and say that, yeah, there's more you could have done with Alice for sure. So I get it. Okay, so number 5 is going to be Demon from part 5. Now, Demon's only in the movie for a couple minutes. Reggie goes to see his older brother, maybe a little bit out of town, but he makes quite the impression in those first 5 minutes. First of all, the actor Miguel Nunez, who also, shout out to him, was also in the great Return of the Living Dead from 1985. Um, Man, it's like such a fun couple. It's a fun 2 scenes with him. Seems like a really fun character, and then is immediately killed off by Roy, which, what the hell, man? Why is Roy even killing Demon? I mean, what does Demon have and his girlfriend have to do with any of this stuff? This is like really Roy going out his way to kill Demon for no reason. I mean, Demon's already dealing with those damn enchiladas. He's already having stomach issues. Now you got to kill him on top of that. So I didn't like seeing Demon get killed. I felt like Demon was again someone that you could use in future movies somehow. I mean, just great character who steals the movie. And the other thing too is, I mean, when Roy killed him, he robbed the world of a future #1 hit single. I mean, Demon was clearly about to hit the pop charts with his song he just came up with on the spot. And we, as fans of music, were robbed of a future pop single, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Mambo #5, Demon. Demon was on the way, man. Future pop artists killed those damn enchiladas. Okay, so now, number 4 is something I've always said, which is Crazy Ralph. Now, Crazy Ralph, at the beginning, the first movie, he's kind of just a rambling old man talking about a death curse and all this. And then in part 2, he's, killed pretty quickly when he's a peeping Tom in the woods and Jason takes him out. But throughout the movies, we always have that sort of warning person. We have that person in the shadows, be like, "I've warned thee." And then from part 3, you have that guy. You have the deckhand in part 8, it's telling everybody they're cursed. The ship is cursed. So if you're gonna have a Crazy Ralph character throughout the franchise, why not just make that Crazy Ralph? I mean, have him pop up all the time in these different Crystal Lake settings. He can pop up and give a warning. The other thing with the Crazy Ralph would have been that he would have been a very easy way to give more lore about Jason naturally. Maybe Crazy Ralph was friends with Pamela. Maybe he knew Jason's mom. Maybe he knew Jason's dad. Maybe he knows more about Jason's drowning. So it would have been a very easy way to introduce more lore about Jason without the huge info dump we get in Jason Goes to Hell, which made no sense. So Crazy Ralph, stop being a peeping Tom. You can appear in future movies. So, okay. Number 3 is from part 3. Ali, as much as we said, I would like to see him survive. There's one character who not only should have survived, but should have been the final girl, and that is Vera from part 3, Vera Sanchez. Vera is sort of set up like she could be the final girl. You think about her story. They pick her up at the beginning. She doesn't want to, or she wants to go, but her mom's telling her not to go. Her mom ended up being right, of course. But she's defying her mom and going with a group of teens. She's introduced on a blind date. This is like our first story we're introduced to when we meet the teens. And then in that first half of the movie, she has the conflict with the bikers at the store. She and Shelly have a more interesting dynamic than Chris and her love interest have at the movie throughout the movie as well. So they kind of her and Chris kind of share screen time in the first half of the movie. And I thought it'd been an interesting dynamic to have Chris killed early and then Vera be the one to be there at the end. I don't say Shelly because I think Shelly still needs to die in that same way that Boy Cried Wolf, play too many pranks. Now they don't believe me, but I'm really dying. His death is fine, but I just think wasted potential. Vera was likable. She seems strong. And then, like I said, her story lends itself. Like, what if at the end, like, her mom comes to pick her up, and that final scene is her mom picking her up and taking her home. Just a lot of potential there. But also, I don't find Chris to be that interesting of a main character at all. So, Justice for Vera is what the once the killing star, she's the first person killed, and that's just like her and Shelly being killed before, her being killed before Debbie and Andy, when clearly the Vera Shelley thing is a much bigger deal in the movie. Just, in my opinion, missed opportunity. Number two, this is a very popular pick on these kind of lists. It's Jenna from Friday 13th, the remake or the sequel or recall, however you see the 2009 version of Friday 13th. Jenna is the final girl throughout most of the movie, and then she's killed at the end, but it feels like she's killed more in a way to subvert expectations versus it making sense story-wise. Um, I don't buy the sister as the final girl. I know that we see her at the beginning. Then she has her weird being captured by Jason in an underground lair as a kidnappy plot line. I know we have that going on basically, but I don't know. I felt like we were more attached as an audience to Jenna than we were her. And I think that, you still get a surprise shock factor if you kill the sister. Like the brother saves her only for Jason to kill her. Now it's all about him and Jenna surviving. Again, credit to the actress who played Jenna. She's very likable. So you want to see her live, but it just felt like at that point, the movie again, like Sarah with part four, you can have three surviving, or Crane Duke and Jason Gozell. You can have three surviving characters at the end. You don't have to cut it down. And two, a good example of this is Scream, when at the end you know, um, Courtney Cox, Nev Campbell, and then you have Randy, Jamie Kennedy. Those three characters surviving. A lot of these movies would have been better served, in my opinion, by having that third survivor. But especially in this case, Jenna, I think should have made it over the sister. Okay, now number one. I thought about this a lot. My number one pick, the Friday 13th character who should have survived most, in my opinion. Just my opinion. Leave comments if you disagree or give your own thoughts on this. But my number one is Sheriff Garrett from Part 6. So when I talk about that third character, you always have, like, say, your main character, your next character, and then your third character. In the entire series, I think the best third character is Sheriff Garrett. It's the best acting, it's the most development, the most screen time. Everything about Sheriff Garrett suggests to me that he is basically a main character. He's just playing the third fiddle in this movie. On a first watch, yes, Sheriff Garrett is overly aggressive on Tommy, doesn't believe him, throws him a cell. He's kind of doing the cliched, hard ass sheriff thing at the beginning. But on rewatches, most of his actions in the movie strike me as just a parent who's concerned, maybe an overprotective parent, but obviously in this movie, he's spot on. So I find his character to be more like decent, like a decent human being, a noble character. He sacrifices himself to save his daughter at the end. But the main conflict in the movie human-wise, is actually between Sheriff Garrett and Tommy. That's the main human conflict established, and that specific plot line does not get a resolution in Jason Lives. It would have been nice to have them see each other one more time after Sheriff Garrett knows that Tommy was right. Just to get that, either that Tommy being like, "I told you so," or Sheriff Garrett telling Tommy, "Hey, you were right." That would have, like, just have them do that and then kill him, but have that resolution of their two characters being at head. Like the fact that we don't get that moment between Sheriff Garrett and Tommy towards the end feels like a wasted opportunity. Again, with my theory that you can have that third survivor and the audience is not lazy enough to only need two survivors at the end. We can have three survivors and the audience can go home happy. Sheriff Garrett having hid in the woods, coming back at the end, and giving some respect to Tommy, I think makes the emotional climax of the movie even that much stronger. Okay, so that is the list. The Friday 13 characters I feel like should have survived. Again, just my opinion. I'm gonna do one of these for all the franchises. I feel like all of them get a lot of things wrong. I have some strong thoughts about the Nightmare series and the Scream series. So if you disagree, let me know in the comments or give your own thoughts on this, and we'll talk to you later. Take care.